everyone. So this is going to be a basic tutorial for Google Forms. Google Forms are really interesting because you can use them for a lot of different things. One way to use them is to just gather feedback from your class, such as a survey. You can also use them as a quiz or an assessment tool. I really like Google Forms. It lets you get data in real time, and it also has some really cool options to look at all the data once you're finished. So you're going to start by opening Chrome, and you're going to go to your Google Drive. Once you are in your drive, you're going to click the New button, and you're going to find where it says More. And you're going to click on Google Forms. Now there's two options. I'm going to show you both. There's a blank form or from a template. If you go from a template, there's all these different things that you could click on, a worksheet or an exit ticket, people's contact information. If you were trying to find, times that would work great for a conference. So the templates are really great to use. I prefer not to use them though, because I like to just make my own Google form from a blank form. This way you have a little more control over what goes onto it. Let it load. So when you first start, you're going to see two white boxes. The first box up here is going to be the title of your form. So I'm going to just put this as testing. And then up here, you'll see that it still says untitled form. So where we just named this testing, or maybe I'll name it trial form. Up here is what it would look like on your Google Drive. So I like to just click it and it automatically turns the same. Once you have named these, and again, they don't have to be the same name. This is the name that everybody taking your form is going to see, and this is just kind of for your own preference in Google Drive. You can add a little description if you want to, so you could give directions or just write a note and tell everybody thank you so much for taking the time, or leave it blank. The first thing you're going to want to do after you've come up with a name is click on this first white box. You can click anywhere. And now it makes the box live, meaning you can type in it. So this gray box says untitled question. This is where you should write your first question. Unless it's going to be anonymous, usually ask for a name. So, what is your name? And now I have a lot of different options here as to how the students or whoever is taking this could answer it. There's a short answer, a paragraph. I'm going to use short answer for this since I'm only asking what their name is. There's also multiple choice options where you can have as many choices as you want and you get to decide what those choices are, and everybody can pick one. Checkboxes is like multiple choice, except they can choose more than one of the options that you give. There's a drop-down menu. This is good sometimes if you say, what school are you in, or who is your teacher, and they can drop down and scroll through a list of things. I'm going to skip file upload for right now. Linear scale is when you ask them something like on a scale of, 1 to 5, with 1 being, the lowest and 5 being the highest, what did you think of this film? The multiple choice grid and the checkbox grid are a little tricky, but they're kind of cool. They allow you to choose a different option under many different topics. And I'll show you one in a little while because I'm going to make an example for each one. There's also a date and a time question, so I will do that next for you. Once you have what is your name, and I've chosen short answer, you can now decide if you want to require this or not require it. I always like to require it. That means that somebody can't skip it. If you don't toggle this button on, people can just skip and go on to the next question. So if you made a whole form and didn't require anything, then people could submit the form and there'd be no data on it. Over here, it looks like there's a lot of buttons. This plus sign is for a new question. This is if you're importing questions from somewhere. This lets you add a title and a description, add images, add a video, and add a different section. When you add a different section of your form, it actually brings you to a different page. These are definitely great tools to use, but you don't necessarily need them in order to create a Google form, except for, of course, this plus button. So now I have my first question, what is your name? I'm going to press the plus button, and now it's giving me the option for something else. I'm going to ask, what is today's date? And as soon as I put that question in, it suggests to me what kind of answer I should have. And I like the date answer, so I'm going to stick with that. And I'm going to require this. I can add a question about what time is it if I wanted to. And again, it's going to suggest me to use the time. The cool thing about these two, if I hover over the boxes, I'll see that there's these 6 dots. If I drag those 6 dots, I can play around and I can change the order of all of my questions. So you'll see I could put the date at the top and then the time and then the name. I can do that however I would like. So I'm going to change this back really quick because I want name first, then date, then time. The next type of question. Oh, I'm sorry. And another reason that's really good is because if you're making a quiz or if you're making a survey and you just want to get everything out and you want to type everything out really quick and then figure out the order you want it in after, you can definitely do that. So now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say, what is your favorite color? And for this one, I'm going to choose a multiple choice. Where it says option 1, I'm going to click and I can write red, yellow, blue. And I'm going to require this. You'll see that there's a 4th button where it says add option or add other. Until you click on this to write something, it's not a live question. If you want to delete it, you can remove it. But right now I have 3 choices. This one is just there in case I wanted to add another, but it won't show up on the form. Now I'm going to add another question, and this time I want to do checkboxes. So I'm going to say, who or what pets do you have? And so I'm going to say a dog, cat, fish, hamster. And you could obviously choose whatever you want. I'm going to require this. The next choice for questions is the drop-down menu. So I'm going to choose a drop-down. And I'm going to say, when were you, or what month were you born? Sorry. But actually, let's make it, for purposes of this form, what season is your favorite? And I only have to give 2 choices right now. So option 1 is going to be winter, spring, summer, and fall. Fire it. I'm going to do a new question. This time I'm going to do the linear scale. It's nighttime right now, so I'm going to do how tired are you. Now it gives you what your scale can be. You can choose starting at a 0 or a 1, and you can go all the way up to 10. For younger kids, it might be easier to just give a few choices because obviously the more choices you give, it gets a little more complicated. So I'm going to do 3 for right now. So how tired are you? I'm going to have 1 be exhausted. I'm going to have 3 be wide awake. I'm going to require it. The next type is a multiple choice grid. You'll see when you choose multiple choice grid that it's going to give you rows and columns to fill out. So my question could be something such as, when, so I could say, what activities do you like in each season? Oh, my rows, obviously rows going across. I could make my seasons winter, spring, summer, and fall. And then my columns, I could have different um, choices. So it could be play outside, um, watch TV, um, play sports, and I'm just going to write sled. I know these are not the best questions ever, but for the purpose of this form, it's working. Now, what I'm going to do is the next type that I wanted to show you is the checkbox grid. I'm going to come down here to where these two little pieces of paper are, and I'm going to press them, and it just duplicated this question for me. But this time, instead, I'm going to use the same exact question, and I'm going to use checkbox grid, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. So now I have my little form. I'm ready to see what it looks like. I can come up to the top and I can look at the eyeball and I'm going to preview it. So here's what everybody would be getting from me. And you can see the difference on the multiple choice grid and the checkbox grid is that on the multiple choice grid, I can only pick one thing for each column, but on this one, I can check a lot more. So if I think it looks good, I can X out and I'm ready to go live. The way to do that is to press the send button. And you have a choice to automatically collect email addresses. That's more so if you're looking to see who did and who didn't participate. You could either email it to people if you already know their email address, or you can just give out this link. One really cool function that Google Forms does have is you can press this checkbox, which is shorten the URL. So now instead of having to send out this huge long URL, you just have a tiny one. So you could copy that. And once you do that, you can send it out for everybody to see. One thing too that you want to make sure that you do is under this little button which says add collaborators. If you wanted somebody else that was able to work on this form with you, you can add them as a collaborator. But also under this form, so here's the editor. Let's say I was going to add my friend Stephanie. If I want to add Steph, I now have the option of making her an editor with me. Sometimes it will say, if you want to add an editor, it will say you can make somebody just viewing it. But in Google Forms, if you're adding someone, it's normally that they're an editor. You can also get the link and copy the link. You can change that if you want. So this right now is saying it's going to go to anyone in Lowell, Mass, or I can restrict it, meaning that even if somebody got that Lowell, Mass link that I gave, they can't just go and share it with other people. And you can see here what I was talking about with the viewer. Is anyone with this link a viewer or are they an editor? Make sure it's just viewer. That's the default. You don't want to send this out and have everybody be able to take your form and change it. So you just want people viewing. If you change someone to an editor, they can change everything. There's also over here where you can add, if you click these three dots, you can add your collaborators, you can print it. You can make a copy of this. Up here too, there's different add-ons which you can use. That's kind of a more advanced feature that you can play around with once you get really good at forms. And there's the customization of the theme. This is really exciting to play with, I think. You can choose your different colors for the theme. You can come down here and change your background color. You can change what your font looks like, although I recommend keeping it usually basic, I think looks the best. If you do decorative, it's way too crazy for everyone to read. Basic's pretty easy. The other thing you can do up here is you could choose an image if you want to really spruce it up. And they have all these preloaded themes. So let's see if I wanted to do, I guess ladybugs. Actually, no. Let's do, there it is, the sparkly one. And I'm going to insert it. And now I can change my theme colors if I want. I can change my background color. And now when I press the eyeball, I'll be able to see that my form just looks cute. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to pause my video and I'm going to fill out this form 5 times. And I'm going to fill it out different ways. And then I'm going to show you what your responses look like. So I'll be right back. Okay, so on my last form, I'm just going to show you what it looks like for someone to fill it out. So this is my 5th form. I'm just calling it 5. Today's date I can click on. It is currently 9 o'clock. Favorite color, I'm going to put yellow. Let's say this person has a fish and a hamster. Their favorite season is fall. They're exhausted. Let's see, in the winter they like to sled. In the spring they like to play sports. In the summer they like to play outside. And in the fall they like to play outside. And then I'm going to do that again on this box. So in the winter, now that they can choose more than one, well, I like to sled and play outside and watch TV. In the spring, I like to play outside and play sports. In the summer, I like to play sports and play outside. And in the fall, I like to do the first 3. And now I'm going to submit, and it's going to say, thank you for submitting. And it's going to ask me if I want to submit another response, which I don't. Now I can look at my master, and I can see that right next to responses, it has the number 5. So I'm going to click on the responses. And I can see that I got 5 responses. And the cool thing about looking at your form is you can look at the summary, tells you what you got on every single thing. If you look at question, it breaks it down just by one question at a time. If you look at individuals, it breaks it down by what the first person wrote for everything, what the second person wrote for everything. So these are just 3 different ways of looking at the same information. So for my summary, there's everybody's names. For September 1st, I got 5 responses. That's what that means. For what time is it? You can see that the first 4 were taken in this time frame and 1 was taken at 9. What's your favorite color was a multiple choice question. So it's just broken it up by the percentages of each answer. And if I hover over it, will tell me what that percentage is. For what pets do you have? This was the checkbox. So it gives me a bar graph. What's your favorite season? Again, was a multiple choice one where they had one answer that they could choose from. How tired of you was the linear scale. So that's another different type of bar graph. These were the 2 that I was talking about with the multiple choice grid and the checkbox grid. So for the multiple choice grid, it tells me that, this person, number 2, it actually tells me like to play outside, but winter like to watch TV. And in the winter, this person liked to sled. And then it's showing me what, person number 4 in the spring like to play sports. And in the fall, we had 2 people liked playing outside. So I'm sorry, I misspoke a minute ago. This is not person number 2. This is 2 people. This is not person number 1. That's 1 person. So it tells you how many people liked each thing. For the checkbox grid, it does the same thing, but you have to remember with this one, they were allowed to have more than 1 choice. And if you go up to summary and you wanted to look at it by question, you could look at it by question. So these are all the answers to what is your name. These are all the answers to what was the date. This was the answer to the time. So I can see that my favorite color, I got 2 yellow responses, 2 blue, and 1 red. How many pets do you have? I can see that someone said dog and cat, someone said dog and hamster, cat and fish and hamster, dog, etc., etc. If you click on individual, this is showing you just one person's entire form. So here's number 1. This is their entire form. So those are just different ways to look at your Google Forms, and I hope this helps.